Okay, so here we are outside, just taken delivery of this, and this is a Chibson Les Paul copy. So it's pretending to be a Gibson, obviously, all the way from China, and the first impressions are not fantastic. There's quite a few things that just don't feel right. I'm just thinking where I can put this camera a minute. I'm going to balance you on top of the amp. If I can just make it stay in the right place for a minute. Something like that. Stay there. Right. So what have we got? We've got a very light, in fact, feels chambered, hollow or something. Maybe not, maybe it's just incredibly light wood. Anyway, very light Les Paul copy, and just everything about it for my money isn't fantastic quality. But hey, it's got these little stencils, these little 40s style pretty ladies built in, but the first impressions straight away are that first of all I can see, just picking it up, there's a kind of, not a dent, but the neck's misshapen. It's not even round, you won't be able to see it on there, but there's a sort of shadow which tells you that the neck bulges there, or like a crimp, so it's not even been cut round. The nut has been, I don't know, somebody's tried to lacquer over it with a bit of cream coloured lacquer. Hello. You can see how what's pretending to be binding is, I don't know if it is binding or quite what's been done. It's just different colour paints, I think. You can see how sharply the masking of the paint has been done to sort of give this impression of a binding. But it's, anyway, it's a Chibson, so it's not supposed to be brilliant. But what we're going to do with this one is to change the electrics and the pickups. But most importantly, I think, is going to be taking care of this. And basically, it doesn't play up here. So, I mean, it's set pretty low, but the way it's set at the moment, it plays open chords down here and bar chords. The switch is going side to side instead of up and down, which means it's switching on this is switching on the rhythm, and that's switching on the bridge, which is a bit akimbo. It's not the way it's supposed to be. So it's you know, there's a lot of talk about these things being hit and miss, different qualities, and I don't think this is very good quality. Sorry, just check where. No, that's right. So we've got neck pickup is pushing back that way, so it's rotated wrong. But the bridge pickup is less. It's quite a lot less output. It's further away. That might be something to do with it, but it's unusually light in output. So you've got this gold chrome hardware. It's very yellow, very goldy, and then these pretend Grovers. They've got Grover written on them, but obviously they won't be. It's got the sort of made in USA stamp on the headstock. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway. And it doesn't have solid written on it, I'm afraid. It's got insubstantial written all over it. In fact, on a strap, I would guess this is probably just about neck heavy, almost neck heavy. Well, on the knee it is, anyway. Look, we want it you would expect it to be a bit less than that. You can also see there's some sort of bulges in the finish, which shows the contours of the body isn't exactly perfect. So I don't know what exactly they've done, what it's made out of, but I suspect it's going to be very, very light Chinese. Hey, hello. It's summer. It's the UK. Welcome to Britain. As a result, it's tipping it down outside. As you sort of I get used to in this country. My rain hat, of course. I'll come off right now. So today I'm going to be taking a go at this thing. This is the Chibson Steve Jones copy Les Paul thing, and it's an odd beastie, and I hate like hell to kind of bring bad news to the owner, and like to have something good to say about it, but in this case it's very difficult to, because it doesn't really play very well, and it's not a very nice weight or construction, and I guess it's the downside people will find when they buy a Chibson, that it can come in any what's the word? Variable quality, I think is the word I'm looking for. So some people get lucky and get really good ones, and some get a manufacturer who makes them a bit like this. And so, just to summarise again, what are the things that aren't great about this? Well, build-wise, it doesn't feel very good. It's very, very light. It certainly doesn't have a Les Paul feel. It's got the thickness, but it's either hollow, or if it's not hollow, then it's the most incredibly light material, and it's the neck isn't brilliantly rounded or shaped, so it's got some sort of, not too bad, but you can see that right at the end here there's a misshapen bit, and so the shadow that comes off it, and as Tim pointed out to me, it's got microphonic pickups, as you kind of expect, but most of all it's just choked off. So what we're going to do is a number of things. I'm going to, for a sort of fixed budget really, Tim's brief to me was to, what can we do what we can to make this at least play well. It may never be a very confidence inspiring lump of guitar, in fact it can't be, it doesn't have the weight, you'd have to fill it with lead to make it feel like a Les Paul, but what we can certainly do is make it play a lot better. We've got brand new frets, if you like, to play with in terms of levelling it, so it's definitely going to get a good level. Hopefully we won't find any surprises in that. Then I'm going to change the pickups out and also replace the wiring and the switch. Now the switching here is a standard colour, so it's not gold, but we may I'll compare them when it comes to it, and we may leave the switch in if it isn't really that substantial a difference, but we'll certainly replace all the invisible stuff like the wiring. So here we have it. I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the levelling under playing conditions. I had a kind of consideration with this, thinking it seemed so immediately, so obviously bad in terms of uneven frets, that it might be worth trying to take all the strings off and levelling it once first, just using the neck flat, and then going back to refining it a bit later on. But there's no real reason to do that. It probably just makes as much sense to go straight into doing it in playing conditions. But what we have to then do is we have to get it into a playing condition that we're happy with. Despite this being a fairly ugly plastic nut, it isn't too bad over the first fret, so I will leave that I'll leave that in place for the time being, and I'll do the levelling with that nut, because there's no point going through all the rigmarole putting a new nut on just to improve the quality of the nut right now. I'll do that later, but for now this will be perfectly good for us to set an action. So just as a start point, let me find my string height gauge. So as a beginning point, we can just look at this and think, what sort of action do we want out of this? Now at the moment it's pretty low, hence the fret choking. So we've got it set at about 1 millimeter on the E string, top E, and about 1.2 on the low E. So I'm just going to jot that up on the board so I can keep a record of it. So Chibson action 1.2 millimeters, low E, 22nd, 1.0 millimeters, high E on the 22nd. You know, that should be a reasonable playing action that you'd expect out of a good guitar. So I guess what I'm going to do as I'm going to start with that, go with that in mind. I don't want to make any adjustments here yet because there's no need to. The game will be just to go straight into leveling. Now this is an interesting configuration. I want it to be supported, but I don't want it to take all the stretch out of it. So ideally we might want to do this with the guitar in the upright position, but if we can just support the neck, we can do it fairly accurately without. That's not a bad support actually. Just getting it into, just taking a tiny bit of the gravity out of it. It's not precision or absolute perfection, but it's enough to make a hell of a difference to this. Okay, so having just placed it where I want it for the time being, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to colour in the frets, and then I'm going to get my fret file, my special tunable fret file, which some of you may have recognised from other videos. Is a lower tech version of what you can buy, which I was quite happy to buy and use until, anyway, the seller took issue with how I was speaking about his product, which in the world of consumerist products you don't really have a right to do, particularly when that somebody is being positive about it. But anyway, that aside, we had a disagreement over that, and so I'm reverting to using the tool, a simpler version of the tool that he's selling, and it's obviously 130 quid cheaper to use my homemade one. It does the same job. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a quick look at the relief in this neck and see what we've got. We have some relief in the bass side and more in the treble side. Not too dissimilar, and it's pretty much there, so I'm not too worried about that. That's about right. You don't need to make any adjustments to that. You can also check it by fretting the first, or pressing the string down, or holding it on the first fret and the last fret, and just checking the gap in between there. And you can do it by eye. If there's a gap, then you've got relief. If there's no gap at all, you haven't got any, which isn't good. Some people seem to like to make the guitar neck as flat as possible, full stop, but experience should lead you to believe that it needs some curvature for the strings to spin. So the plan here is to, with all things being equal, with the action being where I'd want it, but the fact that it doesn't play now very nicely, apart from that, it needs, if we leave everything else the way it is and change or sort out the fret levels here, then what we'll get out of it is an action of 1.2 and 1, which is pretty nice playing, which plays and bends, unlike that, which doesn't. So we can guarantee we're going to get some fret cutting going on here, which is fine. So just as a sort of boring thing for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run across the top of all these frets with my marker pen. This is a little bit fiddly, and if you wanted to save time, you could probably take all the strings off and go through the rigmarole of putting them all back on. I prefer to just do it this way, time consuming though it is. And so I'm putting if I keep it out of the way, not scrape the black straight off the strings. Yeah, so I'm putting this marker pen on top of the frets because I want to see where the leveling tool is removing material, and this will be a good way of me seeing that. So as I say, it's much easier doing this if all your strings are off, but the point of doing the fret leveling this way is to be able to do it with the strings on the guitar in playing position or playing conditions under compression. The neck under compression is basically what we're looking for. I don't mind, by the way, drawing on the strings now because we're going to replace these as well. When it comes time to restringing. I think I checked what gauge they were, but I think they're 10s, possibly even bigger, chunkier than that, but we'll put probably 10s back on for the time being. So that this process of fret leveling, there's no set way to do this. You can try a number of different ways, and the reality about this is that anything that reduces the relative unevenness of the frets is going to improve the way your guitar plays, providing you do the basic steps, which is if you level your frets relative to each other, then you have to reshape them with a file of some sort, and then once you've reshaped them, you have to polish them up to make a nice plain, shiny metal playing surface. Otherwise you're trying to play and bend strings on sort of scratchy, horrible, rough mess. So first rule then is that there are a number of ways to do it, and I've probably done most of them at the moment. The first way I learned, well, the lowest tech way of all, is to identify which frets are significantly high compared to their neighbours, and work on each fret individually with a little rubber block wrapped in sandpaper, low grade sandpaper, and you will get a good result that way, but you still have to then polish up the fret. And that's a low tech way that doesn't cost you a lot of money, but for that you need a device to work as a fret rocker. It's gone for a walk. I know it's come up. You need a fret rocker, which allows you to check the levelness of the relative levelness of the frets. I'm not going to use this here because it doesn't really make a lot of sense with the guitar in playing position. But if you had the neck level, flat, you could then check the relative levelness with this, or you could use a well-cut credit card. It doesn't absolutely have to be metal. Then you could do it with a bit of sandpaper and a battery or a rubber block. And then once you've done that, you could polish it up with some sandpaper, concentrating on the string, the fret that you've worked on. And that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is to use a fret leveling file that looks like this. Again, because this is flat, you'd want to flatten your neck out as flat as it can be, and then you just go down there, and you can guarantee this thing will relatively level everything off relative to each other. Then you've got to reshape each of the frets and bring them back up to a polish. Or a slightly more accurate way of doing it is to take a guitar under playing conditions, so the neck is slightly curved, for which a fret leveling file or I won't get it down, but a sanding beam or any flat leveling tool won't be any good if you've got a concave neck. But you can use a tunable file. There is a truss rod with a flat surface underneath, and I can turn this to bend it sympathetic to match the shape in the neck. And I'm doing that by mounting 3 little feet of the same height. They have to be the same height, that's the important thing. I slack off the truss rod to neutral, and then I place them onto the little feet. And right now, because there is no relief in this truss rod, it's effectively missing out the middle fret. When I move it side to side, I'm making contact only with the end fret, because it's making a bridge across a curve. So to do away with that, or to make this tool match the curve in the neck, I just put some pressure on the truss rod, and it's now starting to contact the middle foot. And I do a tiny bit more pressure. You can use a truss rod or you can use your hand. Now this is now just a tiny bit over, very sensitive. I can feel it just by, almost by feel. It's so minuscule or microscopic, the amount of turning you need to do on it. Once you get used to, see that's now contacting the middle and bending forward. So once you get used to this, you can actually get very precise. And when you finally get the thing with the amount of relief you want in it, which is exactly that, it's very, very precise, so I'm not going to do anything else with that. I'm now going to just move this first string off to the side, and I'm going to gently lift it off its bridge piece as well. What it allows me to do, let's see if you can get a closer look at this, what I'm now going to do is I'm now going to use my delicately curved rod, madam, and I'm just going to run up and down like this and see, by looking at the if you like, the cutting marks or the sanding marks on the frets, be able to see where it's making contact and where it isn't. Right, so it's where I expected. We've got choking going on here, so it's immediately cutting off the tops of the frets, or shaving off the tops of the frets here. It's exactly what I predicted, or I would predict, knowing as I did that they're struggling to bend notes in that region, so there was clearly a high fret problem there. So I'm just, and this is now sitting under its own weight, and sort of sitting into the curve of the guitar neck, and I'm not putting too much pressure on it at all. I'm just letting its own weight, which is a fair bit, I mean it's a metal chunk, isn't it, so letting its own weight do the cutting, and we're going to see at which point it's got these high frets levelled enough to achieve the right bends of the strings that we need. So there's quite a few at that top end are significantly high, and we're expecting to see that, so keeping on working backwards and forwards there. What you'll also see is a little build-up of fret dust, with metal shavings basically, around the frets where the most material has been taken off. So it's a very gentle process, but it's taking quite a significant amount of metal, as it has to do, off these frets here, because they are significantly high, and these are what are getting in the way. Now while we're at it, we can gently lever the string back on. Remember, we don't care too much if we break it, because we're going to restring it. And at this point you can pick the guitar up and you can try bending. Well, first of all you try the notes. Should be starting to sound cleaner. Okay, but they're still choking off there, so we've still got a way to go to get these frets right. And in a way, this is where you'd expect the limitations of a Chibson to show up. Really, the fretwork is probably going to be terrible, as it is in this guitar. So we're going to expect to take down a fair bit of metal off these top frets at this end here. And the question is we've got to really go until we've got enough off to avoid or get rid of that choking when we're trying to bend the string. Okay, well, we're hoping that it's bending that way because we've removed that excess height, but it's not bending this way because we've still got high spots here. So I'm going to stop there for now. We can always come back to it. I'll replace this one, and I'm going to move on to the next one. If you want to be absolutely precise, you can just recheck the calibration of your tunable tool, shall we call it, when you get to the middle. It's never never a bad thing to do. It makes sure that you've not gone out of shape. This is very sensitive, this tool. In fact, it's even more sensitive than the bought one. But again, you can see it cutting away at the troublesome frets that I know I've got to level or lower, so I know it's doing the right thing. It's missing the lower ones. You'll find that the ones that are substantially lower will get omitted from the cutting. You won't see, the marker pen won't be removed. That has its own problems, by the way, of course. If you think about how this is working, it's really about level, the relative level of frets, so that their levelness relative to each other. If you have a significantly low fret, it's going to make the next relative fret seem relatively high, and it effectively makes that into a high fret, even though it might not be high relative to others on the fretboard. So you have to treat it as a high fret, and what it means is you have to keep coming down until you reach the lowest common denominator. So we're starting to get, not enough, but we're starting to get some movement there. I'm going to go back into the second one a little bit more, and then I'm going to move on, and we'll come back on the whole lot and go over it again. So the moving of the strings off to one side slightly, and you could make myself a bit more room by moving this G as well. Moving of the strings keeps the pressure roughly the same, so that the compression on the string is it doesn't change that much, but it allows me to get quite good access. The tool I mentioned early on was very cleverly devised to allow you to get access underneath the strings. A really nice little touch. But you know, this is doing the same thing with just a little bit more of a faff connected with it. But I think you'll probably agree, being able to use one of these for £0 at home is probably worth that tiny little bit of effort that you've seen me put into it just now. So as I move along, I'll replace the strings. Bear in mind, like I said, we're going to change those out afterwards. So if it happens to break, it's not the end of the world. But I would recommend putting on another. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I would recommend putting on another string, even from like a test set, because you want to just keep the tuned pressure roughly the same. So right, that we didn't have any notes at all there. So you can see the work we've done on the frets already has liberated those notes, and it's taken removing that much. You can see the dust building up, so it's proving that it's working. Now, as I said, at this stage in the game, I would recommend, just for the sake of it, move your little anchor points. By the way, these are from the original tool that I bought, but I'm going to find an equivalent, because I don't want to use those if I don't have to. I don't want any bad blood. But anyway, all you need to make this work are 3 similar metal objects that have roughly the same. That's what I'm looking for. Well, they have exactly the same height, and ideally come to a bit of a point, so you don't have a flat top. So all I'm doing now is I'm going back to this, and I'm just checking that our relief in the truss rod is still correct for the way the neck is sitting, and it is. So I'll just now going to move the take off my fingernail. going to move the D string out the way. Under a lot of pressure, so I could probably slack that off just a little bit. Okay, so again we just drop the tool on there and off we go. Again, as you're doing this, you're watching and you're seeing what's cutting and what isn't, and it's slow, so you're not doing anything too drastic. What you'll see is that the things that are cutting, or the frets that are cutting, are the ones you now expect to cut, because you've already proved to yourself, if you like, that they are the problematic ones. So you'll carry on cutting and it won't be a surprise. Typically, if we use one of the other tools, like the Chibson fret leveling file, which is a great tool by the way, it really does the business. If we were to use that, you would find that it would be much swifter than this, and we would pretty much take something off every fret immediately after one or two passes. So this is a little bit more restrained than that. Depending on how much has to come off, I'm sort of making a judgment call about whether I literally go down a level to the level where I've taken some off all of the frets, or whether I just improve it a bit and then stop. And because you've got the strings on, you can make a fairly good call by lifting it up and giving it a play. You know, notwithstanding the fact that it'll be grinding and won't feel very nice. So we know we've got notes playing there. So even if we just finished off at that level and polished all that up, reshaped it and polished all those frets up, we'd have a much better playing guitar than we had a short while ago. So just wherever possible, I'm trying to keep the tension close to where it was. Again, it doesn't matter if it does a bit of damage to the strings, because we're going to replace these. They're just, right now they're working as, they're just doing the job of bending the neck for us. But they're bending it in a setup that we know is how we'd like to play it. So I've made sure that the action was right, and we're now working the frets underneath that action setting to make this guitar play. As I say, we're also going to change the nut for a better quality one, but its settings currently are good enough that it doesn't have any impact on the fret leveling work right now. We don't have to worry any about it. A little bit zizzy up there, so my second run, once I've done this first lot, probably just going to concentrate on getting that ziz out of it. We want clean notes all the way up. We've freed up the bending notes, which is great, so we've taken away some of that major problem. We freed up the choke notes. Now we're going to be fine-tuning this now to make sure that we've got the best possible playing notes, and this will be very much fine-tuning. And I'll just, before I go over that, I'll double check the setting on the truss rod again. At the moment, most of these frets are getting a little bit of cutting going on, but there are some that are missing it. And remember I said that if we had a substantially low fret up here, it's going to make these higher, which will cause that slight buzz. It's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to just double check this now on this edge. I'm going to do 3 checks. There goes my little brass piece. Don't want to lose that. Yeah, not easy to spot when they go walking, and they do. So as I'm doing this, you can see I'm just lining this up so it's equidistant along the truss rod. Again, it is not mathematically precise, but I'm just making sure it's as close a setup as it can be. Okay, I'm just going to take that tiny bit of pressure off that truss rod for this edge, because as I noticed, it was a little bit flatter in relief, so it doesn't need quite as much curvature on the truss rod to achieve it. So I'm now starting going back this way again, just doing a little bit of fine tuning now. And what I'm seeing is pretty much every fret now, almost every fret is getting a little bit of a touch. There are still one or two just missing out on this, but if we can get this playing okay, then I will leave those be. It's entirely possible to leave them. Okay. So if I want to do a big chunk in one go, I can just push the strings off quite a bit and give myself a big patch to work on. I'll check again when I've done this for the next bit. I will double check the truss rod setting for the middle part and beyond. It's very nice to use a tool this way because it's quite organic. You're making small adjustments, and in making those small adjustments you get quite in touch with what you're doing. The Crimson file is fantastic if you know what you want to do with it, which is, okay, I've got the neck leveled flat and I'm just going to pile through it and make sure every fret has a bit taken off it, and in doing so it's level, then that's brilliant for that. It really does the business. But if you want to do it with finesse, a bit more finesse and tune as you go along, then this is a great way. So apologies if this is kind of a bit boring, but this is what it takes, I'm afraid, to get it right. Okay, let's have a feel of that. It's a tiny bit more curvature, and that's too much. It's that sensitive. So fine. It's almost a bit too fine for my liking. Okay, that's good. So I'm hoping now that this pass is going to take care of the fine, very, very fine zinging that we had at the top there. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to take a couple of pictures of the build of the duster, because it's quite a nice snapshot of where the problems lay in this guitar. And yeah, you can see it quite easily, quite visually. Mostly around that cluster of frets up there in the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th fret. Big mess of crappy frets. And what they'll do, of course, is they'll make that's going to make playing lead guitar very, very difficult, because those are most of the notes you'll need to use. So on a really positive note, this is going to obviously free up that guitar, so we know that we're going to get a much better play out of this guitar as a result of doing this. So I'll get this halfway. Whoa. Yeah, so I mean that's the positive about this. So that Tim, you're going to get a better guitar playing by miles out of this process. Okay, a tiny tweak. I like this truss rod. It's so fine an adjustment. I'm hoping now to just free up those zinging notes at the top here, and with this last little bit of adjustment. And you can see it's such a fine, thin tool that it's great for using on compound radiuses too, because it does such a fine slice of the radius at any moment that it respects the difference in radius. It's hardly any. Now you can hear the difference. A little more to do there. Bit more on those up the top here, but the E string, the area of the E string is just spot on. So I'm just going to do a little bit more in the off to the side of that. Treating it like I'm a violinist in an orchestra. Very, very fine adjustment. Let's see what we've got. So that's what's nice about doing it with the strings on as well, is that you really can see the improvement. With the Crimson fret leveling file, it is a very effective but blunt instrument. Still a little bit more to do in that middle chunk there. Yeah, the Crimson file is just that little bit more savage. But it's, as I say, if you know what you want it to do, your job is to just level them all quickly on a neck that's been flattened, then there's nothing like it. It does it brilliantly, no messing about, and you can go from there. But if you're looking for this sort of controlled precision, then this is what you need. Okay, gonna stop there, I think. Let's just have a replacement. Tiny bit more, it's nearly there. It's great that it's so sensitive. I've lost my fingernails on this game. I need a tool, a little curved piece of plastic to help me lift these off. Losing my fingernails isn't the best way to do it. Okay, so last little bit of work on these high frets here. By this time now we've practically clipped the top of every fret on this neck. There's one or two that haven't, but we've done it in a controlled fashion, and we've done it because we've needed to make the strings play, or make the frets play. I've got more here still. Damnation. Keep catching my finger in between. So, slow. That's what it is. Okay. Slowly but surely. And the nice thing about this is you're not doing anything too fast. There's no great risk of overdoing this. I once nearly did by trusting to a fret rocker, and I was using the fret rocker and the Crimson file, and together I was using the rocker to tell me whether or not the frets were level or not, and it kept telling me they weren't, so I kept taking away material, and it kept going down and down, and then eventually I realised that the rocker was faulty, and as a result I had taken away far too much of the fret material, or far more than I'd want to, and I only just managed to make a playable guitar out of that, and I was really annoyed. So I'm just going to take a quick picture of this, so I don't know if you can see very well. It's easy to see with the naked eye. Let's see if we can get that. Going to feature His Royal Highness, the famous banana, as I call it, to show that it is possible to do this with great precision using a very rudimentary tool. Okay, so I'm going to stop with that, and now I'm going to go into the process of what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the strings off, because next stage now is to let's go back over here where you can see. I'm dragging. Why am I dragging this? I'm dragging this soldering iron cable with me. Don't worry, it's not plugged in. Stay over there, stay out of it. Right, so I'm going to now de-string this baby. I'm going to wrap off the neck, protect off the paintwork and everything, the finish, and then it'll be a case of finishing the frets first, and then we'll take care of the electric second, and then we'll do the nut string heights last. And providing we get back to the same string heights, we'll get the same kind of playing action out of it when we put the guitar under tension again. We'll have a nice playing guitar, and I'll shed some blood for my art. So what I'm not going to do right now is I'm going to save you. I'm not going to force you to watch the masking tape process, because it's shown a million times before on my videos. Suffice to say that I'll just reappear in a moment with it done, and you'll get the point that it's worth doing thoroughly if you're going to ever work on your frets, because I'm getting injured. Yeah, it's worth doing thoroughly. No matter what the quality of the guitar you're working on, it always deserves to be protected. Now, what I'm going to do just for the time being is I'm going to just take these strings off like this, because I'd rather use these back on to cut the new slots on the new nut when it goes back on, than to find some more and thread them through. So we'll just do it this way. It's much simpler. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to brush some of this swarf out the way. I'll do it down by the floor, and I'll do it away from the pickups, because I don't want it. Oh, any of the pickups are coming out, but generally brush away from the pickups, because you don't want this metal dust coating your magnets. Won't do any harm, but you know, it'll if you give it half a chance, it'll like to stick there. What I'm also going to do, I'm just going to give the fretboard a quick going over with the petroleum ether, or naphtha as it's supposed to be, but it's actually slightly different, but it does the same thing. And I'm just using this to brush off as much of the grit as I can, and also making just making sure as I can make it that the fretboard itself is not carrying any grease or oil. What we don't want on this stage when you're using masking tape is a load of oil on there, because it just makes the masking tape drop off. Also, as I'm doing this, I'm also taking off any marker pen that's gone down the side of the frets, which I'm going to do more marker pen on it in a second, but I might as well only start with it right on top if I can help it. So I'm just giving it a quick bit of elbow grease to achieve that. So it's interesting that I've got a guitar coming for a pair of brothers who live in Nairobi in Kenya, and it's a guitar that they wanted me to buy in the UK and send to them, and so very simply done. They sent me money. I bought the guitar via eBay, and it's going to arrive here in the next day or so. I'm going to do a setup on it and dispatch it off to them within a week or two maximum. It'll be very interesting to see the kind of the costs as well, but also the ease or otherwise of getting a guitar out to Nairobi. I think one of the big worries I would have would be theft in that part of the world, but we shall see. We're able to insure it for an extra £5, which doesn't sound an awful lot, and I have no real idea of the kind of limitations if we had to claim on that, but let's just hope that it doesn't work out that way. But we shall see. Managed to send a couple of guitars very successfully to Sweden, but I've probably said a few times that it seems like the UK courier industry is a bit of a weird creature. So I said I was not going to bore you with this, but just as I'm chatting, yeah, the UK courier industry, it seems a bit hit and miss for my liking. There are some things in the UK which are just consistent and straightforward, but if you either pay sort of parcel force who tell you it will cost you 400 quid, or you go onto another site which is an aggregator or a comparison site, and it gives you a range of options around £80 to £100 or something like that, and immediately if you're like me, you go into, nah, it can't be legit, it's got to be dodgy. And so there's a instability about it. Even if you contact them, they go, oh yeah, that's the price, yeah, I'll get to Kenya in 5 days or whatever, and you think, no, it's not going to be. How come it's 400 quid less than parcel force were quoting me? But it's just really weird how it's so unconfidence inspiring. It feels like you're in a bit of an uncharted frontier when you're doing that. Still, the more opportunities I get to send things overseas, perhaps the more confidence I'll have in it. I will stop this now. What I'm doing is I'm just playing going on. I'm just cutting my masking tape to order to make this an easy process. We need it cut in different thicknesses or different widths, so I do it in this sort of industrial style. What's that crap on there? Do a sort of industrial version of it using this block or this piece of wood, and that way I know that I can always get a whole guitar's worth out of these 4 strips. Just makes it a lot easier. And then I use a large steel rule or aluminium rule to cut the widths I want, and then cut it into 4 bits. So you can figure that bit out. I'll speak to you in a minute. So, guitar neck fingerboard protected with a generous layer of masking tape, which is cheap and it doesn't matter if we ruin it, whereas it does matter if we ruin the fingerboard. It spoils everything. Anyway, so next stage of this now is to re-profile these frets. So to begin with, I'm going to take the pen and draw across the top of all the frets again. This time it's easier to do because the strings aren't on. And again, this purpose of this is to create a guide to let us know what we're doing, and it works differently from the previous stage. This time we'll reshape the frets long ways, if you like, and the marker pen will tell us when we've reshaped the fret into the correct shape, which is, we really want it to be in a kind of arch dome shape as opposed to this flattened thing that we've currently got. And the marker pen is helpful because we start to use this concave file. It will, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it will just take off the edges of the fret, and it will leave behind, if we've reshaped the fret, it will leave behind a very thin layer of marker pen. When it takes it all off completely in one go, like this, it tells us that we don't need to do any reshaping of that fret. And if that's the case, that's fine, we just move on. We'll pretty quickly come across the ones where we do, like this one, and then we have to do a little bit more work on it. This tool needs a bit of a clean, actually. I'll just have a quick look at this. Here comes Morris. Morris, do we have the rubbery stuff? No jugs, but we have some stuff that might help us clean it. Oh, here it is. Ooh, God, that's filthy. Why is that so filthy? Ew, what's spilled in there? Oh, wow. It's really interesting. I don't know what's happened to this material. It's kind of decomposed or something. If I seem to fall ill as a result of doing this, then you'll know why. It's very sticky rubber. I think it's trying to work the way it's meant to, which is to pull off the bits of metal stuck in the diamond dust. Anyway, that's what happens when you use the tool. Blimey, that's really grim, whatever this substance is doing. It is like some sort of organic goo. I'm just going to leave it exposed to the air because I don't think it should be quite like that. Blimey. It really does look like we've created some sort of biological warfare or something. Turn into one of those 1960s sci-fi films where I fall down screaming, clutching my face. Or is that an episode of The X-Files? Yuck. So, how well that's actually working. I do have another tool I could use if necessary. Let's see what it does. Okay, well, it's still cutting, it's just doing it in a sticky way. I can really do that. Hello Morris, what is that substance? Can you just want to get Morris to can you just evaluate it for me please, Dr. Morris? Yeah, look, what is it? What is this stuff? Is it evil? Is it poisonous? Will it kill us? He's not really sure. It's produced some sort of bizarre resin. It is like it's organic. Oh yes. Ooh. I might have to buy something else that does the same thing because I don't really want to be handling that much more. And it is really this has really clogged up the end of this file, which I don't want to have happen either. What are we going to do, Morris? This isn't ideal. It's not easy to get in here and clean stuff up. There's more surface of this to use, but let's try it. Use the long surface. I tended to use the edge, the end, sorry, because it makes an interesting. It makes it easy to use downwards, but we can use the full length of this thing. To be honest, I don't expect to see much reshaping going on down this end anyway, because most of these frets were in fairly good shape. They didn't get taken down too much. So just taking off the marker pen and taking out any bits that we need to. What? You need some love and attention. First couple have a bit of shaping to do, I can see that now. Yes. You want to be loved up, don't you? You're sort of blocking the camera now, Morris. Yeah, look. No, he's going to knock it over now. Come on, friend. He's not a cuddly cat, you see. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to be cuddled. So you can go down and sit on the seat. Let's carry on. Yeah, so the first couple of frets here did have quite a bit more taken off, or flattened off, so we do need a bit more reshaping work on them. And I'd expect the ones up at 13, 14 and 15 to need the same amount of reshaping as well. So we come up here, and straight away I'm seeing a much, if I just do these next few, I can see big patches of the marker pen staying on, and that's the indicator that you've got a big flat spot that has to be cleared off by reshaping. But otherwise, apart from these few, not too many that need radical reshaping. But typically it's the troublesome ones that do. See. Where it takes the marker pen off straight away, then I stop and consider that done. It means it's the right shape to begin with. And of course the reason we leave that extra, or that bit of marker pen on top, is because we want to end up with, or we want to keep the same relative level that we had at the end of the levelling part, which is now what we've done. I would like to clean this out, but I don't really want to use this evil glue. I might be forced to. I don't know what it reminds me of. Something very alien and unpleasant. We cut it. It still feels the same. It's got the same. It's a kind of gummy rubber basically, and it's supposed to be good for taking out or lifting out all the dust, the metal dust that gets stuck in the file. But you know, to be fair, on StewMac I have put this file through a fair bit of abuse in the last year or so. So I don't hold them directly responsible for it clagging up at this point. It'd be kind of impossible to expect it not to after so much heavy use, but it probably does warrant a bit of a clean through like this a few more times than I've actually done it. So just a matter of neglect, I think we could probably safely say. But it is, no wonder they call this gummy rubber, it's totally gummy. So this tool is quite good because it has a jumbo side and a medium jumbo side. I haven't got one specifically for fine narrow frets, And that was just an economic decision really, since I don't tend to refret personally with narrow frets very often, if at all, so I tend to go for the larger frets. So medium and jumbo does the job for me. Right, anyway, that's that done. Next thing I need to get myself is some 2 grades of sandpaper, and it's going to be 600 and 1200, and I need a foam block. So this part of the deal is now about resurfacing the frets, or polishing them out, and I'm just going to move that slightly, and for that I'm going to use, I don't know what that was that went down the back, could have been anything. I have to replay the video and find out. So yeah, I'm going to cut myself some bits of, tear myself some bits of sandpaper which I can use, and I'll have 4 bits of 1200 and 4 bits of 600. Now, I haven't still got the perfect combination of these things yet. For my liking, it's perfectly playable, but I never quite get to where I'd like it to be. So I don't know whether I need to increase the number of 600 grade sheets that I use on any set of frets, or whether I need to introduce another step or not. I've got quite a lot of this micro mesh stuff. I'm going to open a new set here, although I've got loads out already. I'll just use this new set because I want to. Right, so what I'm going to do is, just with the neck supported like that, again it's perfectly fine that where it is, I'm going to start with the 600 grit, and this is, you can see now why I've protected it the way I have. I'm going to start by just rolling my fingers up and over each of the frets, and I want to remove, I want to smooth them out, but I don't want to flatten them, I want them to be rounded. To remove the traces, all traces of the fret crowning file and the 220. So the levelling grade that we used on the truss rod was 220. The fret levelling file, sorry, the reprofiling file, or the crowning file that I just used was 300, and this is now 600. So this should bring all of the frets back to 600 scratch, 600 grade finish. And then we'll take it to 1200 and then use the micro mesh series to go from about 1500 through to 12,000, which we do it enough and we do it right, which will give us a really highly polished plain finish. I tend to concentrate on the end ones a bit because they often get left out, or they seem to suffer from not as much attention as the rest of the frets. Now be warned, at this stage your guitar will get dirty. It's bound to it, so we need to be ready to clean it off afterwards. Right, so there's the first. I'm going to do another set, another piece of paper at the 600 with my fingers, and then I'll switch using the block. One reason for that is that the fingers will start to blister very quickly if you do it too long this way. But it is a good way of feeling what's happening and knowing that your fingers are riding up and over the frets instead of kind of creating a flat spot, which a block might be at risk of doing if you aren't careful. This produces a fair bit of dust actually, so you have to be cognizant of that and make sure you don't be breathing it in. And also just taking sandpaper to the edge of these frets as well while I'm doing this, because I might as well just soften off any sharp edges that were there before. I'm not saying there were necessarily, but it doesn't hurt while you've got it in this place, but you're in this position to give it that little bit of attention. and make sure it's as comfortable to play as possible. So that's 2 bits. Now I'm going to switch to the block, and it's a shaped block, you can see. So again, it lets me kind of bounce up and down over the frets, and that's what I want to do. Again, I don't want to put a flat surface on them if I can help it. So they've started with that, so I'm going to try my best to do away with that. And this tends to fire the dust around quite a bit. Now I can still see small scratches on the top of here, so just spend enough time with these either end to make sure that the scratches disappear. But without introducing new unevenness, which you don't want to do. So that's 3 bits of that paper. I'm going to try a 4th one and just see if that helps the process. Right, now I'm going to switch to the 600. Well, Morris is sitting there, he's heard all this before, so it must be a bit boring for him. Sorry, going to the 1200 now, so much lighter grade. Again, I'm going to use all 4 sheets on this. I want to make sure, I want to convince myself that I've got the right combination of things here. As the paper wears out, spin it round, getting the full sort of range of use out of each one. Do 3. So I've done 4 at 6 and 3 at 12. And then we'll move on to the micro mesh. There's no clean way of doing this, I'm afraid. Sandpapering equals dust. That's final. Okay, so micro mesh set now from 1500. God, brand new, look at that. 1500 right through to 12,000. Once we get going with this, we're going to do it quite quickly because the gaps between the stages are quite small now at this level. So maybe, that's where I could be making my mistake. Could be the transition here that's the tricky one between the 600 scratches and the 1500 micro mesh. Maybe that's the 1200 paper and the 1500 micro mesh could be the big deal for all I know. Okay, brand new 15 to 18, on we go. And onwards and onwards. For 3600. By this time you're getting a real shine starting to build up. Careful not to rip your papers, as I did. It can get quite hot doing this. It's also easy to split them and then the coating comes off once they're split. 4000 is usually the stage where it starts to really shine, and then the rest is sort of fine tuning after that. Very nice. It's looking good. 8012, the last two stages. Reset. What I'll do is, rather than take off the paper, the masking tape, at this point I'm just going to leave it on because we've got the electrics to work on, so it's better that the guitar is still covered. There's no need to take it off yet, but we've finally finished all the work, and then we can peel it all off and give it a clean down at that point. I'd much rather be dropping a screw or something onto this masking tape finish than not to the actual guitar finish. It's a good safety insurance policy, I guess. Okay, we finished off there on 12, and that's our polishing sequence done, ready to play. Obviously, I'm not going to take it off and play just yet because I want to carry on with the electrics. So you can see it's made a lot of dust and filth, but along there you've got beautiful sorted frets. Now what I'm going to need to do is to just very lightly take off the masking tape around these pickups, because I'm going to need to get in there now and switch those out. So I just pop my way through and peel them back. I don't know what's going next door, but it's heavy rock time. Come on, I've lost my fingernail in the in the service of my country. Okay. Okay, so I just want to be really careful. I can use a thumbnail just to break this. We can re-masking tape if we need to. I just need access to the pickup like that, and then if I need to cover over anything else I can go back over with tape. If I feel the need to protect any further, like that for example, go down the side there, and maybe in here. That's not really very good. Being a bit adventurous with my sticky tape here. Alright, that will just keep some of the muck off there. And I'll do a bit on this side, just so that it's as covered as it can be for the time being. It's just a matter of, what I'm doing is just keeping the main area where I'm working on safe and clean. What I also want to do, since I'm going to be working around here, I want to put some tape around these parts too, because it's quite often you have to reach into here with a soldering iron and it's all too easy to drop a bit of solder or something, which would spoil the finish. So I'd much rather chuck on tons of cheap, easily replaceable masking tape than explain away a burn or something. So wherever I think I'm going to need to work to do this wiring change out, I'm going to just layer on some tape, give myself a safety insurance policy. Nice tunes. Better than some other things, that's for sure. I've just had an interesting message on Facebook from Mike asking me if I'd be interested in joining their band, which is a very nice, flattering thing and all the rest of it. I was wondering how I'd make it work. I guess it would have to be an either or, because I don't know, I guess people play in several bands at once, but I'm not sure how much time I'll have free for two bands, but it's great to be playing. Right, so mucky, loads of tape everywhere, but it's going to give me a degree of security that whenever I'm reaching over into there, I'm not at risk of damaging it. So as we get going, first thing I'm going to do then is to take out the inspection covers, or the back covers, and this is going to be a straight swap for swap. It should be very, very straightforward. I had a bit of more of a difficult time yesterday because I was doing it with a Gibson Les Paul Junior, and to my surprise, or just unfamiliar really, that guitar comes with a whole set of quick connect fixtures, which if you don't have, if you have a non-quick connect set of pickups to add into it, which is what I was doing, then you're kind of left with a choice. Either you order some in from the US or wherever it was the only place I could find them, and wait a couple of weeks till they arrive, and it's a fair expense, or you basically make do by snipping the ones that are on the existing pickups off and reusing them by joining them, kind of splicing them back together again. So I took that option under advice from Tom, who wants his guitar back sooner than 3 weeks away, I guess. So I took that option, and that allowed me to do the job yesterday. Right. Okay, so here we have your standard innards. This is incredibly light wood. I mean, it appears to be solid wood, as in it's not chambered, it doesn't sound chambered, but we're using the lightest wood known to mankind. It's probably the same sort of wood that the Encore Epiphones are made out of. Sorry, not Epiphones, the Encore, basic Encores are made out of. It's an ugly sort of thing. I mean, I don't do fantastic soldering, but what's clear is that this is, you know, this is my level of soldering, which you'd expect something better than that from a manufacturing unit, but it really isn't. It's Sam's level. This is great because it means I can do an easy enough change out. I mean, the question here is there anything here that is essentially so bad? We've got there's one quick connector in use here, which is quite interesting. And what's interesting about it is that it has 4 leads going to the jack socket. Oh no, sorry, two of them go to the jack. It's got all the returning leads, that's fine. I had me confused for a minute. So they've grouped them all together and put a single block. So I've got the whole kit here to replace all of it. So let's see what we've got. Run through. We've got an axe tech kit with instructions, so you've got everything you need to do the job, including the instructions. Some wire. We've got a switch here, which is more or less the same as that one. Maybe a little bit better quality. We've got some orange drop capacitors, which will probably sound a bit better than the ones that are in there. We've got a little thing for the switch top. Bit of solder, kindly supplied. We've got some decent looking pots, 2 alpha and I think 2 beta. Yep. Next door. Sorry, so they're all alpha pots. They're A's and B's. They look fairly good quality. The full size ones I didn't order the extra long ones, so they shouldn't be ultra long. They don't have to go through too much body. And then what we've got is the sort of basic wiring. You've got an instruction manual how to do it. That's always kind of handy. Cleanliness is everything. Understand the diagram before you start. Well, that's fine. We'll just tape it up there. So it's fairly standard stuff. So what I'm thinking, what will I do? If I'm going to replace all of this, then I will make up I'll put my pots in there first, and I'll just feed everything back. The problem with this, the only slight downside about this switch is that it's chrome, which might just slightly spoil the overall gold look. Or I can test I might test the resistance on the actual switch itself, because if it isn't a problem, maybe just use the gold switch anyway. It's not a hell of a amount that's going to go wrong with that, other than having a different resistance on it, which could change its characteristic a bit, but I believe. So here we have our Wilkinson replacements. One of the things that Tim asked me is, could we get rid of the Wilkinson? And for once, it's not stuck on letters, it's painted on. It's not painted, it's yeah, a light kind of paint. So can we get rid of those? Probably. We could scrape that off and polish it out. Or we could put a light coating of lacquer on. We'll see which works best. But he doesn't want Wilkinson on there, which that's fine. Completely understand. Probably with a tiny and judicious use of micromesh, we could probably sort that out. It's a bit of sanding followed by a polishing back up just in that spot. That's what it's really good for, micromesh stuff. So we've got these Wilkinson pickups. They've got the full range of wires coming out, allowing you to split coil tap them if you want to. We're just going for a straight replacement here. so that we'll follow a simpler wiring setup. I'm not going to take you through this with me because it's going to just be long and I end up talking to myself while I do soldering. So I would magically turn this off and reappear with all the new equipment soldered in place. This also puts me under too much pressure to be doing it on the camera while it takes quite a long time. But just I'm happy to stay on here while I'm just looking through what we've got in these different wires. What does it tell me we've got? We've got yellow, we've got black, and we've got grey. We've got black from the pickups. Yellow, black. So this stuff here, how many cores has that got? One. Let me strip a bit of that. I'm hopeless at using the actual wire cutters. I much prefer to strip the thing down by hand. I don't know why, I just got a better feel for it. Okay, so this is a single core shielded wire, which is good for what's it good for? It's good for, I suppose it's good for, is it good for? What would I use it for? Connecting up. Well, here it goes, it's good for going out to from pot to pot, and from the pickups come straight in to this one here. I'll do away with that. So I'll just use it for everything pretty much. Okay, so I'm going to first of all release or find my way under here to this switch. I'll need to get it out and have a look at it anyway just to make sure it's usable. I want to start from scratch. I think as I say, I'm not really sure this is that much difference in component. It's going to make that much difference with this. So it could be wrong. I mean, just chuck it in there for a minute. So now we have our basic switch. I think you can just see it there. Yeah, it's like there isn't really going to be hardly any difference between that one and this one. This is a slightly better build, but that's it. I mean, in fact, the only thing we could do on this is possibly put the gold bit on top, but that might look a bit silly. Depends how much is showing. The thread works, that's the one thing, and then we got the screw-on tip. There you go. Near enough. I'm maybe tempted to do that if we're going to replace all of these things. Let's look at doing that. Okay, so I'm going to go off air now. See, that's what's nice about having this taped off. I can just let it dangle around without too much worry. So I'm going to go off air, going to heat up the soldering iron and get stuck into this for fun. But as I say, we've got a bit of work to do. Let's see how much it takes to remove those logos, or which is the best way. I mean, you know, here's one thing I can just try without doing anything else. It's what happens if we painted over it with some permanent marker. Have we got enough depth? Well, you know, it might even be slightly better than attacking it destructively. You never know. I mean, it does the job, it gets rid of it. I'll try it with I'll add another layer of the other marker pen as well. I mean, if I don't do it that way, I will take it off. It's visible, but you know what, you'd have to look up close to see. So it's much of a muchness. I'll try the other pen on this other one, see if that produces a darker result. Actually, I think it does. This is actually slightly blacker and less blue. It's quite an impressive cover up. It's probably better than doing a full-on destructive thing. We'll see what it's like when the pen's dried, what kind of reflective quality it has. Okay, so there's my chosen switch. I'm going to now get set up to do this, so I'll see you on the other side of the surgery. Well, so much time has gone by that it's dark. You'd be amazed how much effort and mess it takes to rewire a guitar. Anyway, the point being is, here we have it. The Chibson is now rewired and re-pick-upped. So what I want to do now is gently take off the tape and it's a bit longer than I'd like because it's quite a lot of it around, and then I'll need to give it a clean because it's got dust and crap all over it. The one thing I'm not 100% happy with yet is the grip of that. Go away. Where is my thing? Stop making a noise. Yeah, it's the tightness of this little lever here. I've used the new what do you call it, switch, and I don't have a tool for tightening them up, so I have to get it as tight as I can with other means without mashing up the thread with the little knobby thing, you know what I mean. Anyway, so this is a bit annoying, but it's better than having to dealing with knackered finish. So the electrics bit was fairly straightforward, I think. The one thing that completely surprised me was that the wire from the neck pickup was too short. Didn't quite reach into the cavity, so well, it did just, but it was very close run thing. So just managed with kind of persistence and gritted teeth managed to solder it into place, but there was not a lot of leeway on it. This guy with his low-tack bloody masking tape, load of crap. Anyway, yeah. So that was surprising for a Wilkinson thing. I don't know if there's something unusual about the dimensions of this Les Paul. I would have thought it would be fairly standardised, but anyway, it struggled to get through. Partly, I think it's because the cable, the wire came out the wrong side, wrong in inverted commas side of the pickup, which then coupled with the routing on this meant some of the wire's reach was wasted in crossing over to the exit point of the cavity. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, just not a great thing to have to solder it almost under tension, really. Right, so just going to get this last of the tape off the body parts here, because I want to get the neck uncovered as well. I'll give it a clean, and then we'll get on to the fun stuff, which is getting the final setup going. It's because we've done the fret leveling with what I call my banana, and that's a sort of an in-joke to distinguish it from another tool of a similar sounding name that I won't mention. Anyway, because I did the fret leveling with that in the playing position, what it means is it's a much simpler job now to get it back together again. We just string it up, make a couple of very minor adjustments, and then we're pretty much ready to go. There's so much gunge to wipe off this. Somebody shouldn't be allowed to sell stuff on eBay that isn't what it is. Like a fool, I paid for it and accepted it. It's just too much trouble. But this is not low tack masking tape. This is a bloody nightmare. What a plonker. That's him, not me. It just makes life quite a lot more difficult. If this was low tack as advertised, this would come off easily. But you can see it's putting up quite a fight, which means we're going to be here a lot longer. So sorry about that. I mean, it doesn't do any harm. It's just longer, and I have to use a bit of solvent to get rid of any of the residual tape glue that sticks on to the finish. It will all come up. It's just more pissing about than I'd like to do. Pardon my Chinese. I suppose particularly around here you want it to come up cleanly around the edge of these pickups instead of, I don't want to have to take these covers off in order to get this off, but you know what, I'm going to have to do it. And given that we've got no leeway at all to get these pickups up and out, I don't think I can even do that. I'm going to have to just rub it off. I could get hold of that seller now. There you go. Grim. That is a lot of unnecessary hard work coming up. Get rid of this. Anyway, the nice upbeat part of it is when this finally comes off, you'll be able to see when it's done, you'll be able to enjoy the pristine finish that is the re-leveled, refinished frets, or dressed frets, whichever way you want to describe it. Oh, this stuff is not low tack at all. Anyway, yeah, so we'll be heading for nice, shiny, playable frets any minute now, and another 10 minutes of trying to get all the glue off, thanks to this moron selling this stuff as low tack when it's definitely not. I feel like buying some more from him just so I can go and leave some shitty feedback. You know, I shouldn't have to go through all of this. This is really hopeless. Anyway, so the positive then is that we've rewired it, taken out the hideous old pickups. They really were as cheap and ropey as you can possibly get for your money, which is not surprising, but they had no potting at all on them, so no wonder they're microphonic. I'm not even going to suggest, Tim, that you have them back, for there's no point in it. I mean, you're welcome to have them back if you want, but I'd suggest chucking them away, because I don't think you'd ever want to do anything with them. I certainly wouldn't. Why would you spoil a guitar by putting those back in? Just going to rub off most of this stuff and then come back with a solvent and get the rest off. Okay, So I'm just leaving, am I leaving this bit? I'll take most of it off. I was hoping we'd have seen that with the bridge still in place. Probably can still do it, but I don't want to. Don't really want to change the setting. Anyway, so let me just give this a quick going over to get some of the grime off it. I'll get it off the neck first. And this sort of dries out the fretboard, if anything. But we'll put some oil on it before the day is out and before we can finish off the job. Now I am stuck with these little bits of caught masking tape in here, and it is really unsatisfactory. Damn the man. I've only got my fingers to use. So you can see the glue sticking on at the moment, and it comes off quite nicely with the solvent, but you just could do without having to scrape and soak all of this and rub and work this hard on this swine. You can see where it picks up the dirt very quickly, so it tells you where it's still got glue stuck to it. Bit of thumbnail pressure and cloth when it comes off. But I'll come back to those bits that are caught under the pickups slightly later on. Again, everything gets dusty in this process, so it's worth giving everything a clean off. We also have to do the edges. Stay. Because that gets sticky as well. And more paper there. Come along. Oh, it's so annoying this guy has done this, and you get my drift. I am annoyed. Makes so much extra hard work that you don't need. If I'd have known, which I now do, but if I'd have known, I would have gone down and paid more for it at my local hardware shop where it is available for sort of town prices. Maybe you could argue that will serve me right for wow. This has got some amazing swirls on it, this finish actually, if you look at it. Not at all good. I'll take some scratch remover to it, I think, but it's not a good guitar finish at all on this beast. Anyway, let's get this. Oh, sorry, it's boring for you being taken through my sufferings of having to get sticky glue off. Ah, getting there, still not quite done. Just everywhere you look there's a bit more. It's totally annoying. Right, so I'm going to pause this to save you the misery and come back when it's done. Okay, so cleaned up, damn it, after a lot of hard work, and I'm going to just put on the volume and tone buttons all the way here. I'm never quite sure where they should sit. But volume. Oh, bloody hell. Volume, volume. Where are we here? We've got volume and volume, right? Volume, volume, yes. Blimey. Volume and volume. Tone and tone. There we go. Right, so a little adjustment here now to do is to knock off the thingy here, the nut. It's a horrible plastic thing, so it comes off quite nicely, simply. And we'll change it out for this bone nut, which has a nicer characteristic. Probably need to just clean up that slot a bit with a little bit of filing, and then we'll. Actually, is it alright? It's not too bad. Do a little bit, and then we'll need to. I'm just going to open this door. We'll need to then get the nut slot correct. So it's just taking up a bit of the crunchiness of the glue that was there before. Just gives it a bit of a flatter surface to grip onto. Blade, thank you. There you go. Just take some of the crunchy stuff off the surface of the rosewood. Don't need to get it all off, it's just a matter of making sure it's a reasonably smooth fit. Which it will be shortly. That fits in quite nicely with a bit of back pressure actually. So pretty much I can get going with that straight away. There's some Super glue and get that busy setting. So I'm going to just lever it in from behind, as it were. I'll get this the right way around. Hang on. Hold on. Duh, that's a left-handed nut. What I spotted. I did buy a left-handed nut, didn't I? Yes, I did. And I snuck it into my collection without checking carefully. So we need to be careful. Yeah, this isn't the most, it's not the most airtight fit you've ever seen in your life. However, we can just fill in any gaps that need doing. I'm just conscious that the alignment of this isn't fantastic. It's just having a quick reconsider the way the strings come out on this. Be a bit too far towards the edge for my liking. So I'm just going to tap it, make sure I get it positioned good. Okay. There we go. That's sit into place. Yeah, that's fine. And then the tiny difference will just drop a little bit of dust in there, bone dust in there, and fill the air space, if you like. That'll be okay. Sometimes these aren't perfectly, they don't leave the exact right spacings. And what I don't want is that I don't want the treble strings going too close to the edge. Right, so the fun part. I'm going to put these back on for the purpose of putting the guitar under tension and getting the nut slots cut correctly. Crank them quite a way in. Hardest bit now is going to be separating out these coiled up strings. It can be quite a pain. They don't want to come apart really. Come on. You can try and straighten them out. It's fairly easy to do with the bass strings, but it becomes an absolute pain with the final ones. Okay, let's get the bridge on. Okie dokie. So I remember what the setting was before we took everything off, so I can go back to that action setting. But right now it will have changed, obviously, because of the nut height. It's going to be very different. It may be by coincidence, it may just about drop in correctly, but it's unlikely that it's going to be perfectly right straight off. Come on, straighten out here. It's too painful. We'll throw these strings away shortly. It's just for now. Just for now that I need them. There's a couple of reasons really. One is to cut the nut slots, but it's also right now really good to get the neck under tension, but also to get the nut under tension, so it'll help lock the nut down. I'm not really worried about stability of tuning at the moment, so as long as I can just get these things on and the tension, that's all I really care about. Oh, so bloody hard. Okay, this is going to be a huge improvement on what we had before, that's for sure. That was easy. Oh Jesus, that wasn't nice. That's the downside of playing with used strings. You always get stabbed at some point, and I'm just made to do that too. This bit of putting on coiled strings can be just so frustrating. You end up having to bend it again, but you can lock it sometimes, but you've got to keep the loose string from going round your scraping around all the lacquer, as it's going to want to do, like that. Okay, okay. 2 more to go. So we'll just basically use these old strings to cut. Oh, Christ. If I can get them threaded through, we'll use them to cut new nut slots, and then from that point it'll be a case of changing out the strings. Look, there we go. It wants to drag it round and make a nasty scratch. Yeah, we'll take out the oh, Lord. We will dump the old strings, and it'll be a pleasure, I can promise you, and then get the new strings on and a final adjustment. This is just proving very, very obstructive. Okay, to keep those bits out of harm's way. That's a kind of a tempting fate, I know. Right, so it's funny how that's what the string defaults to doing, is it always rotates around onto the floor and then tries to scrape around on the lacquer. It never sticks straight up in the air the way you want it to. Maybe this time. So one of the reasons I always use bone for a nut is because it's a much easier substance to use. I hate using plastic. It's just really, really unworkable. Plastic, when you try and cut the slots, plastic seems to just melt. Right, first and foremost, have we got anything that's in tune? No, we don't. So we'll use this. Looking at this, the heights aren't too bad at all. As it comes, it's not going to take much cutting. Okay, well this is obviously, I've got no action height there at all, so I just need to find the screwdriver and raise the action first of all, otherwise I'm fighting a losing battle. I need to give myself at least that millimetre that we started off with. This one doesn't want to tune at all, it wants to pop off the peg. Where am I going? Right, so at this point I just want to set the action back to where it was and get that part of it sorted. So currently that's just on 1mm. It was 1.2 originally, so I'm just going to come out a tiny bit more, and then down here it was 1, which it is currently sitting at. It's now out of tune again. Just going to pull these get the slack out of them, not because I really care about them being too much in tune, because we're going to replace them again in a minute. Just want to want them having roughly the right tension. Okay, so next stage, nut slots, got to get this bit right. This is critical. Just get that slight support under the neck there. And get our slot files. And the idea about this now is to get this cut down to a really nice, slow, easy to play action, which will make the action down here improve slightly as well. But it's mainly about the action at this end that's important. So if I begin with the D string, drop these off, and what I want the D string to be at is about 0.25, not on the imperial, on the metric side, so it's 1/4 millimeter, and I don't really want it any higher than that. Now at this point in time it's quite a way higher than that, so I'm going to give myself, I've got no fingernails left, so I'm going to use the, God, wreck those fingernails. I'm going to use this file now to cut down into the bone. I'm cutting it a slight tilt backwards, and then once I've done a bit of a cut, dropping it back in, taking it out, doing some more cutting, same sort of angle backwards, blow away the dust. Again, you can see and feel the distance. It's way bigger than 0.25 at the moment, so it's way oversized. And once we get this right, the whole playing action will massively improve. Getting close. Then again, it doesn't matter too much if we stress or stretch these strings at this point, because they're getting binned anyway. So you'll know when it's down at the 0.25 because you'll start hearing the string choking against the feeler gauge. Just starting to get there now, and it's way lower than the ones either side of it, so you can see the difference it's making. Once we've cut these slots correctly, then we also may well want to just slightly reshape the nut or take some of the excess material off the top. contrary to some people's views on this, I don't believe it makes any difference. You know, some people think that if the string is a long way into there, it will cause all kinds of binding. To be honest, the argument would be, yes, the less material the string touches, the smoother it's going to move, but by that token, then it would be better to have a V-shaped slot instead of a semicircular one, because even at the best sort of settings, the best you'll get is the string sitting in a kind of U-shaped or semicircular slot. So we're going to have some of it in connection with it. So we shift down a string, we shift down a gauge, and just nice and smoothly cut away. As I say, bone is very predictable as a nut substance. I prefer it to the tusk stuff, to be honest. I find it easier, even better to work with than tusk. So it's just a matter of being patient. If you're doing this for the first time and you're not sure about it, then have a spare nut handy, because then the worst that you're ever going to get is you've got to step back a stage and knock out the nut and begin again. You know, and if you've spent £8 or £9 on a new nut, whatever it is, then it's not a huge price to pay for learning how to do something this way, and the satisfaction of getting it right. And Tim, you know, my experience is that getting this right is the single most important modification you can make on your guitar. So this is absolutely where it's all at. Okay, we are on the mark there. This changing that down here makes the guitar, transforms how it feels to play, and it cures the intonation problems that you get with a string height. I mean, you know, that's about 1 millimeter. It's way too high. It needs to be 1/10 of that. But you've got to be bold and brave to kind of cut it down to that, because people are frightened it's going to buzz or, you know, be too low. It's only going to be too low if your frets are a mess. You're up to, Morris? Oh, you're eating moths. Do you know what? They're going to make you sick. You know that. Don't look away if you're squeamish, by the way, at this point. Tommy, I hope your Maine Coon doesn't eat moths like Morris does. He treats them like snacks. Oh, there it goes. So, just lots of patience. We're almost there now. You can hear it starting to just about buzz. Ugh, no fingernails. Damn it. Yeah, you know, for the amount of improvement this makes, every guitar I've ever done this to, it's the one thing that I can guarantee makes it feel like a completely different guitar. People get it back and it's easy to play, and the easy to playness always comes from this end. Morris, be careful. Somebody's going to have an accident. There's water, there's dirty water. You don't want to drink it. Don't want to drink it. Nearly there. Yes, anyway. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, so it makes the biggest difference of all, and people, you know, pick up a guitar, and, you know, it's the wow factor, because, you know, guitars, people think it's the action at the bridge end that makes it easy or hard to play. Okay, we're on the stops down there. going to get messy in a minute. Let's just tip this up on its side a minute. Ooh. Oh, what's it done? Oh, no, it's a dead bug that's knocked out of the light. Oh. RS. Just eat it and take off somewhere else, would you, my friend? No, obviously not. Ah, RS. It's going to be trouble. It's down here. Just go down on the floor, would you? No. It's going to end up burning itself to bits on the light anyway. I'm so sorry about this. This is like carnage in the shed. Right. Let's move on to these top strings. Come back to that. Right, starting with the 17. Horace, have you done the deed yet? You're just going to carry on chasing around the place. I've always been amazed. In fact, they sell these nut slot files in sets matching the string gauges. So this happens to be a 10 gauge set, and I've also got an older 9 gauge set at the top there. But given that the manufacturer doesn't know what set of strings you're going to put on your guitar, you find that he always makes the slots on your guitar suit almost any gauge, so including the highest or heaviest likely gauge. So while you're buying a set to work away on this top E, you're buying a 0.9 gauge string, when in fact the original slot was probably 0.13, because there's no way that the manufacturer is going to kind of make it possible for you to put your choice of 13s or whatever, 12s, 11s on. So the doesn't seem to me to make a lot of sense to buy a whole series of sets, really. I tend to stop at 13 and I make the B and the E 13. It doesn't make any adverse effect at all. There's no loose rattling or anything, nor is there when the manufacturer sets it at 13. What I have found is the opposite. In fact, if you do follow it too closely to the actual gauge, you create such a tight fit that you can make it impossible to use. Nearly there. You see how long this takes to do, and you then think to yourself, why is it that no budget guitars you've ever bought had this set right? Almost none, probably. And the reason is how much time you've seen it take to do this. Isn't likely that manufacturer or retailer is going to want to put that time into it, because obviously time equals money. Yeah, and there's no way you're going to get this right without putting the time into it. Having said that, Gibson do produce an adjustable nut now on the top of the range-ish models. But for the rest of us, if you're going to get this bit right, you're going to have to do this, or a version of it. I mean, technically you could file away the nut or sand it away from underneath if you could be absolutely sure you're going to get the tolerances exactly right. It's a lot of trouble to keep putting it in, finding its action's too high, taking it out, putting it in again, but you could do it that way. I find this way is more control. Okay, getting very close now. Come on. These finer blades are very hard to use actually, and they tend to want to bend and buckle. Still a bit of room to go there. Slower rather than quicker. Let's have a feel of this. Tiny, raise that a fraction too. well, it's playing. Is it perfect? Don't know. Not yet. In terms of action, it's about as low as I'd want to go, to be honest. It's just coming in at 1.2 still on the low E, and just about the same on the top E. If anything, I might just go a smidgen higher on the bottom E, or the lower notes. Well, got all the notes playing compared to before when they didn't, so going to restring it now with some new strings. Going to oil the board, do a little bit of tidying up on the nut end here, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Give it a test play tomorrow. Hello, and welcome back to the Steve Jones Chibson copy. I don't want train times, I want a guitar tuner. Thank you. Yeah, Steve Jones Chibson Les Paul copy, and I'm just going to basically do the intonation part, and it's always difficult to put a strap on when you've got a youth hoodie on. Anyway, so result of this is new electrics in place, new pickups in place, and it's playing okay. Got really easy to play low action that we didn't have before, and we can also bend all the notes on here that we also couldn't bend before, because these Chibsons come with, by and large, lousy playing action. Got a fly in here, thank you, that's what we need. So it's, in a way, it's the best this guitar is probably going to play. There's nothing we can do about it really. Quite a mighty chunky sound out of this. Wilkinson's. Probably detuned a bit overnight. Horrible tuners. When I say horrible tuners, what I mean is that they don't. Sometimes you can just turn them and they don't do anything. is. Not trying to be. Yeah, could use some shielding. Sex Pistols tracks are there that I don't know? I suppose this is the obvious one. See if I can find it. I can't find it. Don't have them offline. I'd have to make a horrible noise on the... what's it? Let's see if I can do it. Come on. Oh. Bidip. Quickly. Boring you now, sorry. Okay, what I want to find is okay, let's go for Anarchy in the UK. Anarchy in the UK. Sex Pistols, yes. Version 2 chords, yes. Lots of people seem to like it. Loaded. Let's cut off the internet now. Quite nice, chunky sound. On a Steve Jones look-alike guitar, slightly top heavy, but oh, a dead bird! So there we go, Anarchy in the UK. Let me just take care of this dead bird a minute. I don't want to be walking over it. Of course, I didn't attempt to sing that. Oh, what a shame. Oh, grim. Oh, grim. Utterly grim. Yuck! I shall just disinfect my hands here with some alcohol solution. That lovely little baby dead bird had already got a hammock. Hammock? What's about looking at a hammock? Maggot growing on it. going wriggling on it. Anyway, I've chucked it into the sharpest bush in the garden so the cats can't get it without killing themselves. Right, anyway, the point about this right now is not to be playing Anarchy in the UK, which is quite nice, but it's to be doing the intonation on this guitar, and then we'll be done, ready to repackage it up in its polystyrene cocoon, and getting it back out to Tim. And it's yeah, it could do with a full set of shielding in there, because it doesn't come with any. So it can be a bit noisy depending on what devices you're standing next to. Enough of that. So, what are we doing with the intonation? We are making sure that each string is the right length for the guitar. So for that we're going to need a screwdriver, a cup of tea, and a tuning device. And depends, I think I'll probably use this screwdriver, it's probably the best one. So the idea with this is to adjust the individual length of each string to make it the correct length for this neck, and each string has to be a slightly different length, and your guitar doesn't know what length that is until we do this process of intonating. So the way I do it, there's different ways, but the way I do it is to ping the harmonic string on the 12th fret and tune to that, and then we fret the same string on the 12th fret, and if it's the same note, look at that spot on E. If the note is flat when we fret it, which it is, it means the string length is too long and we need to move the bridge this way, sorry, the saddle this way to raise that note, shorten that string effectively. So what I'm going to do, by the way, you don't have to do this in the playing position, it's a fallacy, you can do it in the lying down position. All that changes when you do that is that the gravity on the neck means your tuning is changed while you're doing it, but it doesn't change the actual length or the other dimensions of the guitar. So it just changes the temporary tuning if you do it on its back, and it's quite easy to do it that way, or if you happen to have it on at the time you can do it this way. So I know it's too long and I need to, I'm going to wind off the volume, and I'm going to use the little screw to dial clockwise to drag the saddle towards the nut a little bit, a few turns, and then I'm just going to push it down to make sure it's seated properly again. This will change the tuning slightly, so we need to retune on the harmonic. Actually getting more power out of the neck pickup at the moment because it's closer to the strings, so I'm just going to rebalance that slightly. Obviously, typically you would want the bridge pickup to be the meteor of the two. Meteor, not meteor. So I'm just pulling those a little bit closer. Right, so back to retuning on the harmonic for E. This can be quite difficult with not so good tuners. So you can see we're still a little bit flat, so I'm going to do a bit more winding in, going clockwise, which will pull the bridge saddle towards me. Now what often I find, or you can find, when the guitar isn't very well made, you can end up with a situation where there isn't enough room to intonate properly. It's not the end of the world, because the amount of out of tuneness it results in is in practical terms quite minor, but it's enough to be annoying. So I'm just winding this forward and now noticing that reality is that if this E string is this far forward, we could be struggling with the other strings to get the intonation right, and that would tell me that the bridge is slightly badly positioned. Trust what the tuning tells us, I'm afraid, even though I don't want to. Oh dear. I don't want to believe it. I'm going to take this pressure right off this a minute, because this, just noticing now that this screw doesn't really want to turn from this point onwards, and I don't know why that is. It seems to be telling me that it's reached a limit. It's not, it's just stiff. It's never been screwed in that far. But again, it's one of the weaknesses, or to me, the design inadequacies of the Tune-o-matic bridge. It's really crappy. Maybe we'll get some slack back in here now. Well, just about there. It's not ideal though. Still a little bit flat. Now that tells me that the way these are going to go, in fact, I'm going to try and intonate this top E. Thankfully that seems to be just about right. If anything, that's slightly sharp, which means it needs to go the opposite way. I'm quite surprised. That means this is the odd one out down the bottom. Sometimes you find that, and to be honest, I have no idea why it happens. Sometimes they don't behave according to the way you think they would. Again, we'll go counterclockwise to push that saddle back a bit. Tiny bit sharp, but only fractionally, so we'll just go counterclockwise a couple of small turns this one. Good. A little bit flat. Counterclockwise again. I was really worried for a minute about the position of this E. I thought we were going to end up with a whole set of strings that wouldn't intonate, so I'd rather have one anomaly than the whole lot not going. this D you can turn forever. Okay, that's too long. So this is where we've got to come forward. Oh, and actually we've got no further adjustment room on any of these. And what it suggests, in fact, is that we need to take this off and basically change the saddles over if we're going to get any hope of intonating them properly. I'm just bringing the other two up. See that? Just about going to have to leave it there. Just a little bit more on the A. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way on the A. It's not bad, but it's not perfect. Compromise city, I think. Basically we're going to end up with all of these bass strings nearly flat against the bridge, which is not a happy picture, but if we're close enough. Well, do you know what? I'm a stickler for perfection, so I'm going to remove these things and I'm going to switch these saddles round to get that extra bit of adjustment room out of it that we need. And it's not brilliant. I'd rather not have to do it because I don't really like taking the strings off and messing around with them, but quite honestly, if we don't do it, then there's going to be no perfect intonation, and I don't like doing that. It annoys me to go out without intonating a guitar properly. So I'm just going to slack off these strings. I'm just going to use this to keep the strings under some tension, or relative amount of tension as they go, because I don't want them to come off the posts at the other end, but I also want to keep them all sort of coming up at the same approximate rate, because I'm going to put a block under there to hopefully give me the leeway to remove the bridge, take it apart and put it back down again, all without hopefully letting these strings get too slack on their posts. So I've got to go quite some way with this, so you can see I'm holding that up there, and I can, as I get to the right place, I can just about, not yet, start to put the cork block under there just to act as a support for the string. There you go. So I can then see if I can pull this off now with the strings that tense or tight, but actually I probably need to keep on turning these, and what I can do at the same time is I can rotate the block and just end up with it flipped over on its tall end, and I'm just aiming to keep the strings taut as possible, because that will, oh, I'm going the wrong way, damn, that won't help. Slow and surely. Right, we are sort of at the extreme end of adjustment before these things the strings will pop off the pegs, which we don't really want. Okay, sorry to put you through this boring bit, but it's kind of useful to know if you're ever interested in doing this or you catch yourself in the same place. What we really want to do is get this cork block upright under here. And so I'll just, if I can't do it, I'll just put something under there to just wedge it in this position so I can just get on with the job at hand. It may be slightly too big to, oh no, that's just about right for now. So it gives me a bit of room, if you can see, to lift off the saddle. Okay, and I'll pull that off to the side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these three out, turn them round, and the reason we're going to do that is once we've done that, it gives us back approximately a millimetre or two. In fact, I would say it's 2 millimetres. 2 millimetres of extra adjustment space, which is what we need to get this to work correctly. I'm just going to plug my phone in to charge while I'm doing this, so that we've got enough 1% charge, just enough battery to do the intonation. So to do this, I'm going to need to pull out the little restraining clip if it wants to come. The restraining clip you'll find on guitars which have the open bar here at the top of the basically it's to stop these coming out. Some of them are sealed along the top there, so they don't need the retaining clip, but they're also not made to be taken out, so that would be very difficult if you want to do this. This is now not cooperating. It's a very spindly little bit of wire, so the problem is now we're going to have to lever it out. It comes out, there we go. Just pull it off to one side, turn it back the way we know we're going to use it, and we want to tease out these three bridge saddles, which they do eventually come out, but often not straight away. So here they are in their sequence, and I'm going to take them one by one and switch them around. So it's so easy to get this wrong and end up having to take it all off again later when you've realised you've got it wrong. So I take the thing out. Now you can see that when this goes in, this bit here slams against the front, and it means there's about 2 millimeters of thickness, which if we turn it round, we're slamming a vertical surface up against the front wall of the bridge, which means we don't waste that last chunk of space on a sloping thing. The sloping profile is not critical to this. It's probably ideal, if you're honest. It's probably a better way to do it, but it's not absolutely critical. The problem I've got here now is that this one is now quite firmly put in place, but it will come out. Here comes Morris, wants to see what we're doing. So again, with this one, take it out, take it off, just turn it round from where it was, reinsert the screw. I know you can't see this in any meaningful detail, but you get the gist. And then we'll turn it round the way it's going to be when we put it back in. It's not the end of the world to get this in the right order. Hey Tom.
Right.
I'm always cautious to put things in the right order so that if there is a need for them to be in the right order, it doesn't get messed up. Have you seen this Chibson?
I have not.
That's it. This is a copy of Steve Jones's Les Paul custom from Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. Yeah. And it's lovely looking, but it weighs about a pound.
Oh, it's supposed to.
No, it's not. It's supposed to be about 8-9 pounds.
Yeah, but
so it's horribly weedy.
As in, it's not the real thing, is it?
No.
It's a copy, so it's not going to be.
No, it could at least have been solid wood, but they've chambered it or taken loads out of it. So I managed to make it play a bit.
Come here.
You just missed me playing my version of Anna Keith in the UK.
Oh yeah.
which is actually quite easy to play. This is the hard bit, is getting these little saddles back in. It's just a matter of levering them in place.
They're not the typical...
They are actually, they're always as, even if it's a Gibson, it's as bad as this, or hard as this. But I've turned them round now. They usually go opposite directions. I've turned them round so that you get the extra bit of movement, because you're going to need all the movement that way. Then you replace the little restrainer bar. Actually, while we're here, we get this a little clean. It's talking to you.
Yeah.
You're looking to me like you want to be going somewhere.
Yeah, you can be right to take me a bit.
How long's a bit?
Well, it is 20 past 9-ish. What's your thinking?
Yeah.
It's 28 past and I've got to be there at 6.
Right.
So,
when do you want to go?
I don't know, whatever time it takes us to get there for 6.
How many times have you done it?
I can't remember.
So in what, 20 minutes?
20 minutes? Alright. Morris, come on, stop bothering Tom.
Okay, so, bothering, he's the quality control inspector, you know that.
Yeah, but he keeps getting in the way of the video. And that is not a good place for you to be, my friend.
He always goes up there.
What do you want? Come on. I'll come and feed you. Come on. Let me feed myself too. Let's go. Come on.
It's actually harder than you'd think to get this little restraining clip back in to place. Right, having done it and having swung these 3 around to face the opposite direction, now it means they're all facing in the same direction, which isn't the case when you first get it. But doesn't do any harm, but it now allows us another couple of millimetres each way on those last 3, which is what we need to get this intonation right. I have, by the way, in the past found that even that hasn't solved the problem. Sometimes the positioning of the bridge itself is so out of place that you just run out and it just doesn't do it with however much you try. So now I'm just keeping the strings under tension and starting to bring them back down. Just hoping that we won't get any crimping or kinking of the strings as a result of having kept them pretty much under tension. We don't want to end up with hours of stretching still to do. Slow process, as you can see. Eventually we get there, and just, as you get closer, just want to reposition the strings into their grooves, and then basically you're kind of getting ready to get your fingers out from under there. So you tighten up and everything sort of picks up tension again, and then a bit of tugging and pulling. Right, so then we go back to the process of intonating, and this time I think we'll just about get there. Let's hope. Right, got to retune everything just first of all and do a bit of stretching. Okay. I'm going to make this thing reach my 11%, just enough to do the tuning for this. So there we go, back to this. Now we're just going to work off these bottom 3 strings. Closer we need to go. Not bad. Bring that closer. Away. I know it's a low battery. So this one's got the major pull forward to do. This is where we needed all the room. Tiny bit backwards on the D, push it down, tiny bit forwards on the A, and a tiny bit forwards on the E. We should be there. Perfect, although not in tune. Okay, that's it. Oh, sorry, I've just oh God, I just realised I've pointed you at the floor the whole time. I'm so sorry. Well, you heard the process. I'm not going to edit this. Do a tiny bit of adjustment to that nut slot. noticed on this, bizarrely, the tuners aren't screwed in fully either. No idea why that would be, but they aren't. So it's just a little tiny sloppy detail. Comes with your Chibson. Anyway, there we have it. Sorry about that last bit of pointing at the carpet. I didn't mean to abandon you. Extra bit of attention to detail. You can probably see now that we couldn't have intonated that without moving those three around. It's occasionally what you have to do, but it is the mark of a not a perfectly set bridge, if you ask me. Now there is a tiny adjustment I need to make to the nut slot on the D, which is it's a victim of this thing of, I don't know if you remember me saying that often when you use a set of gauge, a set of is it D? I think it's the D. Yeah, when you use a set of files that match exactly the gauge of string you're using, my experience is, far from being good, in fact it leaves you with grabbing, clutching, sticky strings like this one. So I'm going to now go in with the outsized doofer file, which is the 36, which is set up for the A. I'm going to use that just to widen out this D string because I don't want it sticking in the slot like that. So it's a good example that if you use the exact one, if you use the exact one, you'll be in trouble, which is not what they tell you when you buy the damn things. You buy a set for exactly the gauge you're using, but then if you do, what do you get? You get sticking strings. So having done that, I've just used the oversized one on there to make sure it doesn't stick anymore. I'm just going to take a quick look at this and make sure that these are done up. They're not brilliant. These sides are sticking up away from the metal. And I think they've been, that one's still got a bit of room to go in. No, not perfect. Okay, and stop. Right, there we have it. So, Tim, that's your Steve Jones Les Paul copy from China, made to play as easy as possible. Still got a bit of stretch in here because I had to slack those strings and put them back on, but that's your baby done. And I think if I had any more advice would be possibly to look at insulating, or sorry, what's the word, shielding out the cavities in this, or the instrument cavity and the possibly the underside of the switch, the control cavity. Because it's picking up a bit of a buzz. So I'll retune that. There we have it. It's that the quality of this you can hear when it's playing acoustically down this end. Actually, that's cheating because it's going through the bench, but you can hear that. There's a sort of zinginess of hollow-bodied thing. Anyway, it sounds a bit semi-acoustic, actually. That's what I guess I'm trying to say. Righty-ho. Thank you for sticking it out with me. You can see how much work it takes to make a Chibson even playable. Because I tell you, when that came through, Tim, it wasn't playable. You couldn't bend a single note up here. So this has improved it quite a bit, and it's made it a lot more playable. Anyway, once it's cranked up, and maybe you're on stage, it looks pretty good, and you can be quite convincing in the Steve Jones mode, as I proved doing my weak version of Anarchy in the UK. If I can play it on there, I'm sure you can. Anyway, so from me and Morris, it's goodbye for now. I'm going to take the boy to football and see you later.